Second theological mark is there's a sense of repentance. This is to me one of the things that distinguishes what I would call real revival, and also what I see in history of revivals, from a kind of emotional frothiness, which often goes under the name revival. Repentance is it can come in such different ways. But so many of the books I've read on the revivals of the 18th century and the 19th century and so on said that in spite of the fact there was a great deal of joy, in many of the assemblies during times of revival, was a tremendous sense of awe. A lot of silence. Revivals aren't, I don't know how to say this. The revivals I've seen aren't necessarily noisy. They're quiet because people, and those of you who are preachers, do you not know that in some ways you know that you're preaching the gospel the best in the most incisive way when it gets more quiet in the room? And in some ways, the revivals are times in which the whole church gets quiet for several years. They're not fighting. They're not boasting. They're quiet they're humbled under the mighty hand of God. So there, the accounts of the early stage of the revival that led to tremendous growth in the Korean church, very, very beginning of the 20th century, the very beginning, 1905, 1910, the great revival that happened in Pyongyang. Repentance was a very, very big part of it, a very big part of it. There's one place where it said that when the revival spread in some of the towns, many of the Korean towns had Chinese proprietors. Very often the Chinese were the rich people in town, and they owned the businesses. And it was fascinating. I read one account that said so many Chinese proprietors were astonished because when the revival started to spread, we had Korean Christian people who had become Christians, or Korean Christians who were sleepy Christians that woke up and came under conviction of sin, started coming back to the proprietors and confessing the fact that they had robbed them or stolen from them or shoplifted or cheated them on a deal. Repentance.